Alexander Foliforov. Stemming from a single performance in the Giro D'Italia, this man is worthy of a video on the channel. A character retired from cycling at 26 years of age, even though he was supposed to be in the prime of his career. A man who for a day was the king of the cycling world, and whom everyone suspected at the time. It's time. It's time to talk about the legend, the conspiracy theories around him, and how this son of Putin was able to sweep the best riders in the world in one of the toughest time trials of the last decade. You want to know his story? Well, without further ado, let the show begin. Russia was in the eye of a sports hurricane in 2016. In March, Wimbledon winning tennis player Maria Sharapova confessed to doping with meldonium, and the most incredulous rubbed their eyes at the sight of a sexy sports icon also doping as if she were Bjarne Riis himself in the mid-1990s. The gringo anti-doping agencies were closing in on the Russians, and they soon showed that the country had organised systematic doping of its most charismatic athletes, resulting in them losing 43 Olympic medals at the 2012 and 2014 Games. And just at that time, Russia had two cycling teams in the elite. The all-powerful Katusha squad of Andorra's Joaquim Rodriguez and the then Russian superstar Ilnur Zakarin. And there was its junior team, Rusvelo, which in that same year received a major financial injection from the oil magnates Gazprom, which was committed as the team's main supporter. Until that campaign, Rusvelo was a mediocre outfit with very few victories, all of them in low-level events such as small stage races in China or Russian one-day races. However, in that 2016 year, the team's riders, all of them Russians, started to perform at a much higher level in prestigious competitions. For example, 34-year-old veteran Sergei Fursanov, whose best triumph until then was in the Vuelta a Madrid, suddenly won the important Coppa I Bartali week and the Italian stage race, the Giro dell'Apennini. And not only that, he also finished fourth in the Giro del Trentino against the best rivals of the time, finishing in the top 6 in each and every one of its stages. It was no coincidence that his best results were in Italy. The Gazprom Rusvelo men only competed in competitions that took place in Italy. The bikes and racing materials were Italian, Colnago, and the goal of the before humble blue team was to participate in the Giro D'Italia. And they succeeded. The Russian banknotes convinced the organisation, and they appeared on the starting line of that edition of the Corsa Rossa with a 9 full of Russians and ready to go, and according to them, to achieve their great goal, a stage win. Led by the then veteran stage hunter Alexander Kolobnev and the aforementioned Russian Sputnik Sergei Fursanov, Gazprom Rusvelo started the competition at the level that most fans expected. That is, without appearing in the first places and appearing from time to time in occasional breakaways, but with no greater interest for the general public than being a mere spectator in the race. Until the second weekend of the Giro D'Italia in the Dolomites. On Friday the 20th, in a hard stage with 2 first category passes and the finish in Cividale de Friuli, a previously unknown Gazprom rider named Alexander Foliforov arrived with the group of favourites, which included the then leader Stefan Kruijswijk, Italian Vincenzo Nibali, the Spaniard Alejandro Valverde, and the Colombians Rigo Uran and Esteban Chavez, although the Russian had hardly been seen in the competition until then. The following day, Saturday the 21st, in a new mountainous finish, Foliforov disappeared 24 minutes behind the favourites on that day in which El Chavito won. According to the Russian rider himself, he was saving himself for the following day, the day that changed the world. On May 22nd, the cyclists were preparing for a tough time trial of almost 11 kilometres to the Alpe de Suisse resort. The cold was in the air and the stage was clearly tough from kilometre 4 onwards. That was where the real climb would begin, and where the riders would have to give their best to win. When Alexander Foliforov came out to race, we were still in the middle of the day. The British Sky Team's American rider Ian Boswell, training for the Tour de France, had registered the best time at the finish line, but we soon saw that our Russian friend had stepped on the gas like never before and was becoming the best version of Peter Ugrimov in a time trial on that day. The most memorable image of his exhibition is this one, in which Foliforov himself, knowing that he was the absolute protagonist of the day, looked at the helicopter as if he were greeting his President Putin and crushed an AG2R rival as if he were an airplane next to a butterfly. Foliforov entered the finish line sprinting, unlike the rest of the riders, and put it different self, pay attention now, 1 minute and 25 seconds in just 11 kilometers into a Boswell who was left with this face of disbelief that you see in the images. The Gazprom show did not end there. The veteran Fursanov completed an impressive festival, placing second at the finish line, 30 seconds behind his teammate Sputnik Azado, and left the world speechless and suspicious about whether even the Russian had used a motor on his bike to achieve that coveted stage triumph. Only Valverde and a then atom-splitting Kreisbike were able to fight for the stage, but by hundredths of a second the Dutchman could not beat Foliforov on that day. On the podium he didn't even look euphoric. The guy looked as if it happened to him every day, as if he knew that he were going to win that day and to make millionaires out of the 4 crazy people who bet money on that imbecilic Russian on that day. The data from his climb were absolutely terrifying. He had beaten Contador's record of 2011, and not only that, on that day he beat Kreisbike, who reached the finish line with the same time as him, and Chavez by more than 30 seconds. It's as if he rode at a tortoise's pace on the 4 kilometers of flat to go faster than the best of the cheetahs on the uphill sections. These exhibitions of the Russians surprised everyone, and believe it or not, they tried again the next day. There, Fursanov arrived 7th at the finish line on the same day that Valverde won. And even again on the last mountain day, when Foliforov finished 2 minutes ahead of the winner of that Giro, Nibali, but could not quite catch the escapee, Rein Tarame, in one of the hardest sections of that great edition of the Transalpine Round. It was so suspicious that the Gazprom Roosevelt team never again achieved a major victory in their history. Foliforov himself disappeared for the rest of the year, and the following season he only managed to win the mountains classification in Trentino itself, and not even a measly top 30 in any stage race or the Giro D'Italia, in which he participated unnoticed. The following year, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, and at the age of 26, he retired. Just when the Russian supercyclist Ilnar Zakharin abruptly lowered his level. Quite a coincidence.